Yesterday I read 4,097 pages across 13 books with 21 hours of audiobooking. I would hold the big stack up, but I have them in order of how I read them, and this book is second. The stack will fail, so no stack today, but we will do the mini stacks for the stats. For the genres, I read 2 sci-fi books, 2 contemporaries, 2 non-fiction, 1 memoir, 1 thriller, and 5 fantasy. Then for nationality, I have 1 Irish author, 1 South Korean author, 1 Swedish author, 1 Canadian author, 1 Japanese author, 3 Americans, and 5 English authors. And then for the format that I read these books in, I read 1 book via paperback, 1 book mixed media with both audio and ebook, 1 book via audiobook alone, 5 via ebook, and 5 hardbacks. The biggest book that I read this month was The Bringer of Dust, coming in at 600 pages, and the oldest book was Pippi Långstrump, which was published originally in 1945. Now let's delve into the actual books. If you saw my TBR video for the month, you'll know my thoughts before reading on Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I was thinking that this might have Murderbot vibes, and it does and it doesn't. Don't go into this expecting Murderbot. You're not going to get it. But we do have a robot that doesn't have the human range of emotions, naturally, and so therefore responds very differently to us to different situations. It's a valet robot who no longer has a master to serve, and so is trying to find a master out of humanity somewhere, but it's actually a wasteland and humanity is almost extinct, basically, struggling to survive, and the robots have taken over, but not very successfully. This is a really interesting book all about AI and the furthering of technology and the importance of actually caring about people and your community, and I really enjoyed it. The wonk is fantastic. I really like Adrian Tchaikovsky's books. None of them have been 5 stars for me yet. I can see it happening. But I enjoy all of them, and I'm looking forward to reading more from him. Then it is time for the big one. This is Wonders of the Solar System and the Universe by Professor Brian Cox and Andrew Cohen. This is a very big book. I've had it since 2016, and I finally read it. I'm so glad. This is a non-fiction that lines up with the BBC production of 2 series, Wonders of the Solar System and Wonders of the Universe, and this is the written form of it. I enjoyed the little kind of insights that you get into the filming side of things, because obviously those aren't mentioned during the filming, so I do like that it does give you a little bit of a different aspect, and there are lots of diagrams and photographs throughout. She says that she can't find it. Here's a photo, a really bad photo. Some of the photos in here are beautiful, and I find a fucking shipping container. There are, I promise, diagrams and photos throughout this that allow you to conceptualise what's actually going on. Here's a diagram, that'll do. I will say that the language is quite scientific. If you haven't taken a GCSE level, so that's 14 to 16-year-old education, science class in the past 20 years, you're going to struggle with this a bit. If you have, it will use the very base knowledge that you have tucked away in the back of your brain and build on that. I feel like that should give an idea of where it's at. I enjoyed this one. I can't believe it sat on my TBR for so fucking long. 8-9 years, but it is finally gone and I'm very pleased about it. It's also very heavy. A much lighter book, and that is Second Chance Convenience Store by Kim Ho-Yeon, translated by Janet Hong. This is... hello, train. This is such a sweet, translated from South Korean... South Korean? I'm not getting into that. Translated book, and it is all about this little convenience store that is run by a little old lady who realistically could and should retire, but she knows that the store gives people jobs and she still does have customers coming in and she likes something to keep her busy. And she ends up hiring a man who is homeless after he saves her purse from people who are wanting to steal it, and it's also the story of how this man then impacts the store and the lives of the employees and the customers. It is exactly what you would expect, but it does have some bits that you're not going to be anticipating. I really enjoyed reading this. It is just as peaceful and as soothing as you expect, with those actual little twists and turns. It looks like it's going to chuck it down. It was lovely weather a minute ago. Then I read The Smartphone Nation. Unfortunately, I did not love this one. So this one, I went into it thinking that it's all about how we are far too addicted to our phones, we need to get off of them, and discussing why it is, exactly how they manipulate us, and how to get off your phones. Now, technically it does do that, but this book has a major focus on how to help your child not be addicted to technology. And it does talk about various age ranges, so if you have a child, you know, it's talking about the young ages of like toddlerness, when your people might show like a 3-year-old in front of an iPad, and it's talking about kind of ways around doing that or having them addicted to that, as well as also ways of talking to different ages of children up to late teen years about the dangers of being online. And obviously this is a really important topic, but I don't have children and I don't plan to. And this book, in its synopsis and in its cover, don't suggest at all that it's primarily a parenting book. So for me, this was not great. I was just like, come on, it was an ebook, so I'm tapping the Kindle, just come on, get through it, when it's the books about kind of teaching your kids about being aware online and like being safe in that area. Lived through that. Could have done with those talks, didn't get them. I learnt firsthand, as many of us did who are my age. So whilst this does have some really interesting points, and the sections that are just general rather than child specific are interesting and well done, yeah, I just want to warn you that it does focus a lot on children, and if you don't have any and don't plan to, or don't have any children around you in your life, it wasn't very useful for me, and I was kind of annoyed that the synopsis and the cover don't say anything about that, because I wouldn't have picked the book up otherwise. But the stuff that's in it that is adult based is good, just the rest of it is too much focus on children for someone who doesn't have any. On a more positive note, Discworld! The Truth by Terry Pratchett. This one is the invention, essentially, of the newspaper and the press. I feel like I say the same thing every single time about these books, because I don't want to spoil anything. This is the, as it says on the cover, 25th book in the Discworld novels. And so things that I could mention by accident that maybe aren't specifically spoilers but do actually technically spoil something earlier in the series could go badly, so I don't really want to say much. However, we are in Ankh-Morpork. We are following a hitherto unmentioned character who has created a newspaper. And it talks about the impact that the news can have, the impact of fake news, but also the impact of journalists who do want the truth and just want to tell people the truth, but the impact that that can then have on the public being told this information that they otherwise wouldn't have known, and the information that the public actually cares about versus what the news might want to display. As always with Pratchett, it is insightful, it relates to our modern day issues, even though this was published in the year 2000. It relates to the issues that we still have in 2025. Nothing has improved in a quarter of a century. As always, I love this. I love the way that the patrician is involved. Vimes is in here a little bit and I enjoyed that aspect too. It's a great book, as always, and I really do struggle to say much about them because I don't want to spoil the series for anyone in any way, because this Discworld series is just absolutely amazing. The people who harp on about Discworld and are like, oh, it's the best series on the planet, I don't disagree. Then I read The Bringer of Dust by J.M. Miro. This is the second book in the Talent series. What the hell is the series called? Tortured Talents or something? That, even if it's not that, that would be apt. This series is dark, dark, dark. If you ever have needed content warnings, you need to look them up for this. I always have them linked down below in my description, but they are also on Storygraph. Those are the ones that I utilise along with my own reading knowledge, so I do recommend those. This is very dark. There are going to be people who don't like this because of how dark it is. That goes for the whole series. It does not shy away. There are children in this book. It's kind of like a very dark version of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and if you don't want to see children going through awful things, do not pick up this series. I understand why people wouldn't want that. I get it. Don't pick it up. If, however, you have mental health issues like myself, this series is written very well. He's like, oh yeah, this is awful. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the world building. I really enjoyed the magic system that we learn about. I enjoy the extra character development that we get in this book, as well as the extra world building that kind of adds more depth to the series as a whole. I personally gave this 4 stars. I got a lot out of the book, but I feel weird saying I enjoyed it after all of the warnings I just gave you. I can see why people are not a fan of this series, but my little tortured soul can't get enough. Then we have Vampires, and that is Damned by Genevieve Cogman. This is the third and final book in the Scarlet Revolution series. So this is vampires in, well, I say in France and in Britain. This one is actually primarily located in the UK, in England, but the series itself is across England and France, primarily Paris, and vampires are being overthrown in France, and it's how this then impacts the vampires that are present in England, how this impacts the aristocracy. It's the French Revolution, so it is also just aristocracy going as well as the vampires. And we are following our main character, whose name I have forgotten because I'm a bad person, Eleanor, who is a former maid, and in the first book she just kind of happens to look like a certain someone and is then used by this spy ring and then gets involved in everything. These are so fun, really well historically researched, obviously with some things thrown to the wind because vampires and magic. I really like these, they're so much fun, I blast through them, I had such a great time, so thank you so much for having me on the blog tour for this one, Book Break. Then another one that was sent my way by Book Break, but wasn't a blog tour this time, and that is What a Girl Wants by Roxy Bourdillion. This book is a memoir that follows Roxy from her childhood up until the present day, where she is editor-in-chief of Diva, an LGBTQ+ magazine. It talks about growing up under Section 28 and not seeing any representation whatsoever of anyone who is LGBTQ+, and how this impacts her, how she discovers her sexuality, and how this then impacts her life overall. I really enjoyed this. I would love to see an audiobook of this narrated by Roxy, because it's very much just a friend telling you about their life. It's really fun, it's really relatable. Love to see a Northern Latin literature. She's from Leeds. I just really enjoyed this. It was really insightful. She utilises the specific events that have happened in her life and extrapolates them to show why we still do need representation and care and all of that for the LGBTQ+ community. This was a really good memoir. Then one I really struggled with, and that was Pippi Långstrump by Astrid Lindgren, because I read this in Swedish. I knew I was going to struggle with this one, I didn't expect how much. There was a lot of playing with words in this, and whilst I'm sure that's a really great way to teach children words, they know more Swedish than I do when they're reading this, okay? I'm trying to think of a word. The only one I can think of is honeymoon. So it's like a compound word, and the two words separately have nothing related to the one word together. So honey, bees, moon, celestial, honeymoon, lovers after a wedding. And Pippi, in a few different scenarios, doesn't know the compound word and so takes the individual words and starts talking about that. And so then, if I was reading this in English, that would be funny. Oh, haha, what a mistake. I'm reading it in Swedish. I don't know the compound word. So, that got a bit stressful. Separate from my translation issues, because I feel like I should review the book. She reminds me of myself as a child, and that makes me really want to go and give my mum a hug and apologise. She is precocious. She is always right in her own head. She's very knowledgeable, but she doesn't know what she should know, but she knows a lot about what she knows about, and she does not care for social norms. And she is just living her best life. And oh dear God, my poor mother. If I'd read this as a child, I would have been even more insufferable, so it's probably a good thing that I never read Pippi Longstocking. Maybe my mum did that on purpose. The book itself was really fun. If you've never read it and you want to read it either in the original Swedish or in your own native language, it is a fun read. It's a fun one, definitely, and obviously if you're not reading it in your non-native language, it's quick. But yes, reading it in Swedish was... whew. It took me a while to get through. My Swedish is not good. Then I read an ebook, and that is a very short one, Home by Martha Wells, one in the Murderbot series. This says that it's book 4.5, but I feel like it spoiled me for some of the plot for book 5. So that's weird. It's 19 pages, so I don't want to say too much about it, but we do explore being able to see Murderbot from an outside perspective rather than inside Murderbot's own head, which I did really enjoy. Then one that needs a million caveats. Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. I was sent this for free by a friend when they were doing an unhaul, so this did not cost me nor the friend anything for me to get this. I would not have purchased it otherwise, despite the fact that House in the Cerulean Sea, the first book in this duology, was my absolute favourite book the year that I read it, and I can't deny that. It was my 5-star, the best book I read that year. There are so many problems with this. Primarily the fact that the author took a lot of inspiration from the events that are called the 60s Scoop. He does not have any link to Indigenous people, and a lot of Indigenous peoples have said that they're not happy with this. Some are fine with it, but some have said that they consider this appropriation, not appreciation, and his utilisation of the schools and all of that is not good. So there is that to be aware of. However, that was the best book I read that year, despite all of the problems with the inspiration behind the book, and so I was curious about the sequel. So I was able to get the sequel without giving Klune any more money, and therefore I was willing to try it. I wouldn't have tried it otherwise. So, with all of the caveats, this book was not as good as I hoped. A lot of it was a repeat of the first book, but less impactful because the first book has already happened. We do get more of the relationship between Arthur and Linus, which I did really enjoy. I liked seeing that. I also liked seeing the further development of the, I'm going to say, magical powers of the children, and learning more about them. Also learning more about Arthur's own powers. I did enjoy that development, and I wish that instead of focusing on another plot that's essentially the same as the first book, which is someone comes to inspect the school and no likey, I do wish instead that they'd focus more on, they have a new joiner to the school, and I wish they'd focus more on him and his experience of like living in the outside world and the discrimination and then joining the school. I feel like that would have been a slightly different plot. We also instead could have focused on Arthur's childhood, because he went through a lot of trauma. There's some mentioned in here, but it's not the main focus. And also this book is dedicated to the trans community, and in the acknowledgement section in the back, Klune says that he wants to be the anti-JK Rowling. And whilst that is a laudable aim, because fuck TERFs, it feels really questionable when like you have then taken the story of Indigenous people without their consent and knowing that they are unhappy with it, and then also written a sequel, and I'm like, mate, this is Cho Chang territory. Then I read Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Maria Griffin. I love this author's work so much. I loved Other Words for Smoke, I loved Spare and Found Parts, and I also really enjoyed Eat the Ones You Love. It is, if you can't guess from the cover, utilising Little Shop of Horrors, and it's using that, but it is set in a small village in Ireland. It is following LGBTQ+ characters. We have a female-female relationship, which I love the development of, find that really fascinating. The small town dynamic and the friendships that grow there and bloom there, as well as the actual mysticism of the plant itself. Sarah Maria Griffin is so fucking good at writing this genre. So good, so good. I don't know anyone else who writes it as well. It's just fucking beautiful. I just love it so much. I love the suspense, I love the magical aspect, I love the world building in terms of course it's set in our world, but building up that community that we have. So we have the central community that is in this small village. We also have our main characters' former friends from the big city, and also the group of friends that she makes, their former friend who also moved away. So we have a lot of perspectives on this small town environment, some positive, some negative, and we get to see all of that intertwined. And it very much also talks about gentrification and about friendship, and oh, it's good. I read this from NetGalley and I need to get myself a copy for my shelves. It's a trophy, oh god. But I need it. Do I need it? You're all gonna say I need it. And then the final book that I read this month, and that is Three Assassins by Kotaro Isaka. This is translated from Japanese by, are you going to tell me? Sam Melissa. Thank you very much, book. This is actually the first book in a series. I forget what the series is called, but the second book is Bullet Train, which was then made into a film with Brad Pitt and stuff. I'm sure you've heard of it. I already read Bullet Train. It is currently at my parents' house so that my dad can read it. And I enjoyed that one. That one is like fast-paced, stuck in a Shinkansen, which is like one of the fastest trains in the world. Murder's happening, it's all over the place. Really enjoyed that one. Didn't enjoy this one as much, but I did still enjoy it. It doesn't have the kind of locked room element that really brought Bullet Train to life, because we are just in all of Tokyo for this one, but I did enjoy the discussions on morality, on seeing these bad characters actually try and see themselves as good in their own heads, and how they manage to some extent, and so do we, and just seeing the impact that's had on different people in different ways from different events, and I enjoyed it. I think it was fun. I'm going to give it a 3-star. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it. I'm probably going to send this one off to my dad as well and see if he'd like to read it. But it has made me definitely want to carry on and read, I think it's something to do with Mantis, the 3rd book. But there's going to be 5 books in this whole series that are getting translated into English, and I would like to carry on. And those are all 13 books that I read this month. Have you read any of these? This is a hell of a stack. I'm not keeping this held up. Oh gosh. Have you read any of them? Do you have disagreeing or similar thoughts to me on them? I would love to hear. And also please do let me know down in the comments what your favourite book was that you read in May. I say this and then now I have to pick one. I hate this bit. I think it might be Damned, you know? I think that might be my favourite book of the month. Please do let me know yours down below. If you'd like to see what I'm going to read in June, I have my TBR up there. Click subscribe if you want to see if I actually manage to read that TBR. Usually I do, but you never know. I have added some very large books to the TBR that are not on the TBR, including Don Quixote. So wish me luck, subscribe, like if you liked the video, and I will see you folks in the next one. Bye!